John Carter stared at the document on his desk. Another set of sanctions against Earth. He sighed and rubbed his tired eyes. 50 years of humanity being part of the Galactic Council, and things had only gotten worse. The room around him felt cold despite its elegant design. As Earth's ambassador, he had the nicest quarters on the station, but it still felt like a prison. Outside his window, the massive council station spun slowly against the backdrop of stars. 300 alien civilizations had built this place together. Well, not quite together. Humans had been allowed to contribute only minimal resources and labor when Earth joined. John picked up the document again. The Council was now limiting Earth's colony on Mars to essential personnel only. No families, no artists, no one who wasn't directly involved in mining operations. They claimed it was for safety reasons, but John knew better. "They're afraid of us," he muttered to the empty room. His communication panel lit up. "Ambassador, Counselor Bell is here to see you," said his assistant's voice. "Send her in." Marissa Bell entered quickly. She was breathing hard, like she had been running. Her normally neat brown hair was slightly messy, and her eyes were wide. "I just heard something," she said without greeting. "Something big." John gestured to the chair across from him. "What is it?" "I was passing by the High Committee chamber." The door was slightly open. Marissa sat down but couldn't keep still, her fingers tapping against her knee. Elder Zix Vorn was talking about Earth. He said our sensors have detected unusual energy signatures from the Sol system. John frowned. What kind of energy signatures? He didn't say, but the others dismissed it immediately, like they didn't want to even consider that we might have developed something new. "That's nothing unusual. They always dismiss us." No, this was different. Marissa leaned forward. "I've been watching them for years, John. This wasn't their normal condescension. It was fear. They're scared of something we're doing." John turned to look out the window again. The Council's massive fleet was visible in the distance, ships moving in perfect formation. Earth had been allowed only small defensive vessels, nothing that could threaten the Council's military superiority. "Did you hear anything else?" he asked. Elder Vulith suggested increasing surveillance on Earth's research facilities. He specifically mentioned the North American Science Division. John's stomach tightened. That was where the most promising research was happening, research that the Council wasn't supposed to know about. "We need to warn Earth," he said quietly. Marissa shook her head. "All communications are monitored. We can't risk it. Then I'll have to go back personally. I can request an emergency return on family matters. They'll suspect something. Not if we give them something else to worry about." John stood up and straightened his uniform. "I'm going to file a formal complaint about these new sanctions. Make it very official, very angry. While they're dealing with that, I'll request personal leave." Marissa nodded slowly. "I'll stay here and keep an eye on things." "Be careful," John warned. "If they really are worried about what we're developing." "I know. I'll watch my step." Across the station, in a private chamber reserved for the oldest and most respected members of the Council, Elder Zix Vorn faced his colleagues. His scaled skin caught the light as he moved, giving him an almost metallic appearance. "You are all making a mistake," he said. "The humans have been quiet too long." Elder Krellax waved a dismissive tentacle. "They are children, barely out of their planetary infancy." "Children grow up," Zix Vorn replied. "And these ones are growing faster than any species we've encountered." "What harm can they do?" asked Elder Vulith. "Their technology is primitive. We control their access to resources, their movement between worlds." Zix Vorn's inner eyelids blinked slowly. "That is precisely what worries me. When you cage something too tightly, it either dies or learns to escape." "Enough of this paranoia," said Krellax. "The humans will remain where they are, doing what we permit them to do. They have no choice." As the Council elders continued their debate, they didn't notice the small light blinking on the communication panel near the door. They didn't realize that someone had heard every word they said, and they didn't understand that the choice had already been made, not by them, but by the humans they had underestimated for far too long. Dr. Alan Wright stepped back from the machine and smiled. After 10 years of work, the Rivera drive was finally ready. The device wasn't very big, about the size of an old car engine, but it would change the future of humanity forever. "Running final test sequence now," said Dr. Susan Miller from her station. Her fingers moved quickly over the control panel. "Energy level stable. Containment field holding." The machine hummed softly, a blue glow pulsing from its core. Around them, the underground lab was filled with the best scientific equipment Earth could build, all of it created secretly, without the Council's knowledge or approval. "If this works," Alan said quietly, "we won't need their warp gates anymore." Susan nodded. Freedom to go anywhere in space without asking permission or paying their fees. The test continued for several minutes, all readings staying in the green zone. When it finished, both scientists let out the breath they had been holding. "It works," Susan said, her voice filled with wonder. "It really works." Alan picked up his secure phone. "I need to call the president." In Washington, D.C., President Laura Hayes sat in the Oval Office, reading through the latest intelligence reports. When her phone rang with Alan's call, she answered immediately. "Tell me you have good news, Doctor." "The best kind, Madam President. The Rivera Drive is operational. We can begin production next month." Laura closed her eyes for a moment, relief washing over her. "Well done, Alan. You and your team have just given humanity its future back." After the call ended, her science advisor, Dr. Neil Jacobs, handed her another file. "You should see this too," he said grimly. Laura opened the file and began reading. It contained decoded messages from the Council's central database, messages that their spies had risked their lives to obtain. "Is this verified?" she asked, her voice tight. Neil nodded. "Multiple sources confirm it. The Council has been deliberately leading us down technological dead ends for decades. All those advanced systems they gave us, they're designed to prevent us from developing our own solutions." Laura flipped through page after page of evidence. The Council had been treating Earth like a resource to be managed, not a partner to be respected. They had secretly harvested minerals from Earth's asteroid belt. They had delayed sending aid during the great pandemic of 2031, watching millions die, while they decided if a weakened humanity would be easier to control. "They've been playing us from the beginning," Laura said, anger clear in her voice. "Yes, but now we have a way out." Neil pointed to a map of nearby star systems. "With the Rivera Drive, we can reach these systems without using the Council's warp gates. We can establish colonies beyond their control. How long before they figure out what we're doing? Hard to say. We've kept the research well hidden, but they have spies too." Laura stood up and walked to the window, looking out at the city. Somewhere up there, beyond the blue sky, the Council watched and waited, thinking they had humanity safely in their cage. "Call a meeting of the National Security Council," she ordered, "and contact our allies. It's time to make some decisions." 3 days later, representatives from 25 nations gathered in a secure underground facility. The room was plain and functional, with no windows and only one door. Everyone present had the highest security clearance. President Hayes stood at the front of the room, beside a large screen showing technical diagrams of the Rivera Drive. "What I'm about to propose is unprecedented," she began, "but so is the situation we find ourselves in." For the next hour, she laid out everything. The Council's lies, the secret harvesting of resources, the deliberate suppression of human technology, and now, finally, humanity's chance to break free. When she finished speaking, the room was silent. Then the representative from Japan, an older man with silver hair, spoke up. "You are suggesting we leave the Galactic Council completely. No nation has ever done this." "No nation has ever had the means to do it," Laura replied. "Now we do." "The Council will not let us go easily," said the representative from Kenya. "They depend on our resources, our labor." Alan Wright stepped forward. "That's why we've developed this in parallel." He switched the display to show another device, a planetary shield system. "If they try to force us to stay, we can protect ourselves long enough to evacuate." More questions followed, more concerns were raised. But as the evidence mounted and the possibilities became clear, a sense of determination filled the room. By evening, they were no longer debating whether to leave the Council, but how and when. Outside, snow began to fall on the city, covering everything in white. Inside, the representatives of Earth planned their escape from a cage they had only now realized they were in. Frank Powell walked into the meeting room with a heavy black case handcuffed to his wrist. As Director of Intelligence, he rarely left his secure office at the Pentagon. But today was different. Today, every world leader needed to hear what he had discovered. President Hayes nodded to him as he entered. "Director Powell, we're ready for your presentation." Frank placed his case on the table and opened it. Inside was a small device that looked like a clear crystal cube. He pressed his thumb to its surface, and it projected a three-dimensional map of Earth's solar system onto the center of the conference table. "What I'm about to show you is classified at the highest level," he said. His voice was calm but serious. "For the past 5 years, my team has been tracking unusual activities at the edges of our solar system." The map zoomed out, showing the Kuiper Belt beyond Neptune. Several areas were marked with red dots. "These are mining operations," Frank explained, "not human operations. Council ships have been harvesting rare elements from our system for at least 50 years, possibly longer." Gasps and whispers filled the room. The representative from Brazil stood up, her face angry. "Are you saying they've been stealing from us, while making us pay for resources from their systems?" "Yes," Frank said simply. "And that's not all." He touched the crystal again. The projection changed to show a series of documents, some in English, others in the strange symbols used by various Council species. "During the Great Pandemic of 2031, we begged the Council for medical assistance. They told us they were developing treatments, but needed time." Frank's voice grew harder. "These documents proved they had treatments ready within days of our first request. They deliberately waited 8 months to deliver them." 8 months, the German Chancellor repeated in disbelief. "How many millions died during that time?" 17 million, said Frank. "And according to this internal memo, the delay was strategic. They wanted us weakened before offering membership in the Council." President Hayes watched the faces around the table change from shock to anger. She had felt the same when she first saw the evidence. "The question now," she said, "is what we do with this information." For the next hour, they debated their options. Some wanted to confront the Council directly. Others suggested using the evidence as leverage to negotiate better terms. "Those are all short-term solutions," Dr. Wright said finally. "The Council will never treat us as equals. Their entire system is built on the idea that older species should guide younger ones, which really means control them." "What do you suggest instead?" asked the representative from India. "We leave." Dr. Wright's words fell like stones into water. "Completely. We take our people and go beyond their reach." He explained how the Rivera Drive worked, how it could take humans to star systems the Council had never explored or claimed, how they could build a new civilization without Council restrictions. "It sounds like running away," said the Chinese premier. "It's not running away," President Hayes replied. "It's choosing our own path forward. The Council has lied to us, stolen from us, and watched our people die when they could have helped. Why should we stay under their control?" Dr. Miller spoke up next, explaining the shield technology that would protect Earth during the transition. "It will give us enough time to evacuate everyone who wants to leave." "And those who want to stay?" asked the representative from Egypt. "That will be their choice," said President Hayes. "But they should know what they're choosing." The debate continued as afternoon turned to evening. Some nations were eager to leave, others more cautious. But as more evidence was presented, of council manipulation, of hidden taxes on Earth goods, of technologies that had been kept from humans, the mood shifted. By midnight, they had reached a decision. Earth would withdraw from the Galactic Council. They would prepare in secret, build their ships, and when ready, they would leave together. As the meeting ended, President Hayes looked around the room at the faces of Earth's leaders. For the first time in years, she saw hope instead of resignation. "We have a lot of work to do," she said, "and not much time to do it." Outside, the stars shone down on Earth, bright pinpoints in the dark sky. Soon, those stars would become destinations, not just distant lights. Soon, humanity would find its own way among them. And the Council, for all its age and power, would be left behind, wondering how they had lost the species they thought they had safely caged. Marissa Bell watched the Council security officers from the corner of her eye. They were trying to be subtle, but she had noticed them following her for days now. As she walked through the grand hallway of the Council building, she counted 3 different officers tracking her movements. Something had changed. The Council was watching humans more closely than ever before. She turned a corner and quickly entered a small garden area where she knew Ambassador Carter would be waiting. It was one of the few places on the station without listening devices. Plants from the Vrelin system gave off a natural interference that blocked most surveillance technology. "John," she said quietly as she approached him, "we have a problem." John Carter looked up from the bench where he sat. "I've noticed our new shadows too. It's not just us. Every human on the station is being followed." Marissa sat beside him, speaking in a low voice. "And I've heard they're restricting travel permits for humans wanting to return to Earth." John's expression grew grim. "Then they suspect something. But how much do they know?" "I don't think they know specifics. If they did, they would have acted more directly." John looked at the artificial sky above them. "But they're nervous. We need to initiate Protocol Exodus." Protocol Exodus was a contingency plan they had developed years ago, a way to get all humans off the Council station and back to Earth if things ever went badly wrong. They had hoped they would never need to use it. "I'll contact our people," Marissa said. "Start with the non-essential personnel first. Family emergencies, medical issues, career changes, any excuse to go home." "Good. And we need to warn Earth that the Council is suspicious. I can send a message with the weekly diplomatic package. They don't usually scan those deeply." As they finished their conversation, a group of Council officials walked past the garden. Elder Vulith, tall and insect-like with multiple eyes that missed nothing, paused to watch them before continuing on. "We're running out of time," John said. Across the station, in the central monitoring facility, Elder Vulith spoke to the security chief. "The humans are behaving strangely," he said. "In the past month, 15% of their population on this station has requested permission to return to Earth." The security chief, a bulky reptilian named Drax, nodded. "We've noticed the pattern. We're monitoring all human communications and movements." "And have you found anything?" "Nothing specific, but there is definitely coordination happening. Too many humans leaving at once to be coincidence." Elder Vulith's multiple eyes blinked in sequence, a sign of deep thought. "Bring this to the Council's attention. We should increase restrictions on human travel." "With respect, Elder, we have no actual evidence of wrongdoing. Some Council members will view this as an overreaction." "Then find evidence." Vulith snapped. "The humans are planning something. I can feel it." After the Elder left, Drax sent orders to increase surveillance on all human quarters and workplaces. Whatever the humans were hiding, he would find it. On Earth, preparations continued in secret. Deep beneath the Rocky Mountains, a massive facility had been built to manufacture the Rivera drives. In orbit, construction ships pretended to work on normal satellite maintenance while actually preparing the framework for the shield system. Dr. Wright monitored the latest test of the planetary shield. On a small scale, it worked perfectly, a dome of energy that nothing could penetrate. Scaling it up to cover an entire planet would be the challenge. His assistant ran into the lab, his face pale. "Sir, we just got a message from Ambassador Carter. The Council is getting suspicious. They're tracking human movements and restricting travel permits." Dr. Wright frowned. "How much time do we have?" The ambassador isn't sure. "Weeks, maybe days before they figure out what we're planning." "Then we need to work faster. Tell all teams we're moving to 24-hour shifts. And contact President Hayes. She needs to know." In her office, President Hayes received the news with a grim expression. She had hoped for more time, but they had always known this was a possibility. She picked up her secure phone. "Start Phase 2, she ordered. "It's time to bring our people home." Across the galaxy, on hundreds of worlds and stations, humans began to find reasons to return to Earth. Some left openly, with official permits. Others, especially those on more distant worlds where permits were now being denied, found other ways to travel, smuggling themselves aboard cargo ships, bribing officials, using false identities. The Great Migration had begun, and the Council, despite its growing suspicions, still didn't understand just how much humanity had changed, or how determined they were to chart their own course among the stars. The Council chamber fell completely silent as Ambassador John Carter finished speaking. He stood tall at the center of the great circular room, surrounded by representatives of 300 alien species. Many of them were looking at him with shock, some with anger, a few with what might have been respect. "In conclusion," John said, his voice steady and clear, "Earth formally withdraws from the Galactic Council, effective immediately. We thank you for the past 50 years of association, but we now choose to follow our own path." Elder Zix Vorn was the first to respond, his metallic scales flashing as he rose from his seat. "This is unprecedented. No world has ever withdrawn from the Council." "There is always a first time," John replied. From across the chamber, Elder Krellax's voice boomed out. His multiple tentacles waved in agitation. "This is not a decision for humans to make. The Council decides when a species is ready for independence." Murmurs of agreement spread through the room. John waited for them to quiet down. "With respect, Elder, Earth was independent before we joined the Council. We are simply returning to that state. You cannot survive without our technology, our protection." Another Council member shouted. "We believe we can," John said simply. The Council erupted into chaos. Some members demanded immediate military action to protect Earth from its own decision. Others called for negotiations. A few simply watched in stunned silence. Elder Zix Vorn raised his hands for quiet. When the room had settled, he addressed John directly. "Ambassador, surely this is a hasty decision. Perhaps if certain restrictions were relaxed, certain privileges extended." "Our decision is final," John said. "The withdrawal document has already been filed with the Council Registry. By your own laws, it cannot be undone." Back on Earth, President Hayes stood in the White House Situation Room, surrounded by her top military and scientific advisors. Large screens showed the status of the SHIELD system and the evacuation ships. "SHIELD capabilities at 87% and rising," reported Dr. Miller. "We should reach full power in about 6 hours." "And the fleet?" Hayes asked. "The first wave of colony ships is ready for launch," said Admiral George Ross. "Each ship can carry 50,000 people. We have 20 ships in the first wave." 1 million people, Hayes said softly. "And how many have signed up to leave?" "Over 30 million so far, Madam President, and the numbers keep growing as word spreads." Hayes nodded, trying not to show her worry. They had built enough ships for everyone who wanted to leave, but launching them all would take time. Time they might not have once the Council realized what was happening. "What about the Council fleet?" she asked. Admiral Ross brought up a new display showing the positions of known Council warships. "They maintain a significant presence near the warp gate in our system. Approximately 200 ships of various classes. How soon could they reach Earth if they wanted to stop us?" using conventional drives, about 3 days. If they used the warp gate to bring in reinforcements from other systems, they could have a much larger fleet here within hours. Hayes turned to Dr. Wright. And our shield will hold against their weapons. Based on what we know of their technology, yes, Wright said. But they might have capabilities we don't know about. Hayes took a deep breath. The next few days would determine the future of humanity. Either they would escape the Council's control and find their own path among the stars, or they would face the wrath of a coalition of species that had never been defied before. Begin the launch sequence for the first wave, she ordered, and activate the shield as soon as it reaches full power. On the main screen, a countdown appeared. 23 hours until the first colony ships would leave Earth's atmosphere. 23 hours to the beginning of humanity's greatest journey. In the council chamber, Elder Krellax had moved to stand directly in front of John. The alien was nearly 7 feet tall, his skin a deep purple, his 4 eyes fixed on the human with cold anger. "This withdrawal will not be accepted," he said, voice low and threatening. "The Council has invested too much in Earth to simply let you leave." "The decision is not yours to make," John replied. "We shall see, human." Krellax turned to address the full Council. "I propose an immediate containment response. No human ships are to leave the Sol system. Any attempt to do so will be met with force." The vote was quick and overwhelming. The Council would not allow Earth to leave. A fleet would be dispatched immediately to blockade the planet and restore order. As the session ended, Councillor Bell moved to John's side. "We need to get back to Earth," she whispered urgently. "Now." John nodded. Their diplomatic shuttle was already prepared. They would need to move quickly before the Council could stop them. The race to escape had truly begun. The Council fleet arrived at Earth 3 days after Ambassador Carter's announcement. Over 300 warships dropped out of faster-than-light travel near the Moon, their weapons systems powering up as they approached the blue planet. Admiral Krellax stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Eternal Justice. The massive vessel was nearly a mile long, armed with weapons that could reduce a city to ash in seconds. "Open a channel to their government," he ordered. "Let us see if they still wish to defy the Council when faced with our might." On the main screen, President Hayes appeared. She looked calm, despite the fleet of warships hanging in orbit above her world. "Admiral Krellax," she said, "we were expecting you." "President Hayes," the Admiral replied, his tentacles twitching with barely controlled anger. "Your planet is now under blockade by order of the Galactic Council. No ships will be permitted to leave Earth's atmosphere. Return to Council authority immediately, or face the consequences." Hayes smiled slightly. "I'm afraid we must decline your offer, Admiral. Earth has withdrawn from the Council, as is our right." "Then you leave us no choice." Krellax turned to his weapons officer. "Target their largest spaceport. Low power, just enough to destroy the facility. Let them see we are serious." The weapons officer pressed the firing control. A beam of energy shot from the Eternal Justice toward Earth. It never reached the surface. Halfway through the atmosphere, the beam struck something invisible. A flash of blue light spread outward from the impact point, revealing a shimmering dome of energy that surrounded the entire planet. "What is this?" Krellax demanded. "Scan that shield." His science officer worked frantically at her station. It's technology we've never seen before, Admiral. The energy signature doesn't match anything in our database. Impossible. They're humans. They can't have technology we don't understand." On the screen, President Hayes spoke again. "As you can see, Admiral, we are prepared for your response. This shield will protect Earth from any attack you might launch." Before Krellax could reply, alarms began blaring across his ship. "Admiral," his sensor officer called out, "multiple energy signatures rising from Earth's surface. Hundreds of them." "Show me." The main screen switched to show Earth from orbit. All across the planet, ships were rising into the sky. Not small vessels, but massive colony ships, each one carrying thousands of people. "They're evacuating," the censor officer said in disbelief. "These ships, they're not military vessels. They're carrying civilians, thousands of them." Krelax stared at the screen in shock. This was their plan all along. They're abandoning their world. He turned to his communications officer. "Order the fleet to intercept those ships. They must not be allowed to escape." The Council fleet moved to surround the rising human vessels. But as they approached, the colony ships began to shimmer with the same blue energy as the planetary shield. "They all have shield technology," the science officer reported. "We can't lock weapons on them." On Earth, Dr. Wright and Dr. Miller watched from the Launch Control Center as the first wave of colony ships rose through the atmosphere. Each ship carried not just people, but seeds, animals, books, art, everything needed to build a new human civilization. "Status of the Rivera drives?" Dr. Wright asked, his voice tense. "All green," Dr. Miller replied. "They can engage as soon as they clear Earth orbit." In space, the Council fleet tried desperately to stop the human exodus. They fired weapons, launched boarding craft, attempted to create energy nets to trap the colony ships. Nothing worked. One by one, the massive human vessels reached a safe distance from Earth. And then, to the amazement of the watching Council forces, they simply disappeared, gone in flashes of blue light as they engaged their Rivera drives and jumped to points in space far beyond the Council's reach. "Where did they go?" Krelax demanded. "Track them." "Impossible, Admiral," his science officer replied. "Their propulsion system doesn't use normal space. There's nothing to track." On the last diplomatic shuttle, Ambassador Carter and Counselor Bell watched the colony ships vanish into the distance. Their own small craft was heading back to Earth, racing ahead of Council interceptors. "Do you think they'll follow us?" Marissa asked, looking at the Council fleet growing smaller behind them. "They can't," John replied. "They don't know where we're going." As their shuttle passed through the planetary shield, they saw more colony ships rising from launch sites across the globe. Earth was emptying itself, sending its children to the stars by a path the Council could neither follow nor block. In his flagship, Admiral Krelax watched helplessly as the human exodus continued. For the first time in the Council's long history, a species had found a way to escape their control. Elder Zix Vorn, who had accompanied the fleet, stood beside him. "We have made a grave error," the Elder said quietly. "We feared their aggression when we should have feared their resourcefulness." 5 years had passed since the great human exodus. The Galactic Council chamber, once filled with confident voices planning the future of 1,000 worlds, now echoed with worried whispers and heated arguments. Elder Zix Vorn stood before the assembled representatives, his metallic scales dulled with age, but his eyes still sharp and clear. "The economic report is final," he said, his voice carrying to every corner of the vast room. "The loss of human productivity and innovation has created a 12% decline across all Council economies." Murmurs spread through the chamber. 12% might not sound like much, but for a galactic economy that had been stable for centuries, it was near collapse. "This cannot continue," said a representative from the Frelin systems. "Many of our worlds depended on human goods and services. 3 of my planet's largest cities are facing food shortages because the human agricultural colonies no longer supply them." Elder Krelax, who had led the failed fleet against Earth 5 years ago, rose from his seat. "We should have stopped them more forcefully, used all our weapons against their shield until it failed, and destroyed the very world and people we wanted to keep." Zix Vorn shook his head. "No, old friend. We must face the truth. We mishandled the humans from the beginning." He touched a control panel, and a hologram appeared above the Council floor. It showed images of human colony worlds, planets that Council scouts had discovered in the years since the Exodus. The humans had spread far and fast, establishing settlements on dozens of worlds beyond Council space. "Their new colonies are thriving," Sixforn continued. And they're advancing technologically at a pace we've never seen before. Look at this. The hologram changed to show a human ship, unlike any design the Council had seen. It moved through space without visible engines, its hull gleaming with strange materials. Our science division can't even explain how this vessel functions, Sixforn said. The humans have achieved in 5 years what took us centuries. Across the galaxy, on a planet the humans called Novaterra, President Laura Hayes opened the first Terran conclave. Representatives from all 27 human colony worlds had gathered in a great domed building, its transparent ceiling showing the bright blue sky of their new capital world. 5 years ago, Hayes began, we left Earth not knowing if our bold gamble would succeed. Today, looking at what we've built together, I think we can say that it has. Applause filled the chamber. On every colony world, humans had built new cities, farms, factories, and schools. Using the Rivera Drive and other technologies developed free from Council restrictions, they had created a new civilization among the stars. We've received reports that the Council is facing economic troubles without us. Hayes continued. Some have suggested we should open trade negotiations with them. Voices rose in debate. Many were still angry at the Council for decades of control and lies. Others saw opportunity in renewed contact. We will consider all options, Hayes assured them. But whatever we decide, one thing is clear. We will deal with the Council as equals, never as subordinates again. After the session ended, Dr. Wright and Dr. Miller met with Hayes in a small garden outside the conclave hall. Both scientists now led the Terran Science Division, overseeing research across all colony worlds. We've made a breakthrough with the quantum communication system, Dr. Miller said excitedly. It's working across any distance, instantly. No signal delay at all, even between the farthest colonies. Something the Council said was impossible, Dr. Wright added with a smile. Hayes looked up at the sky, where the first stars were becoming visible as dusk approached. They underestimated us at every turn. I wonder if they've learned their lesson yet. On the Council homeworld, Elder Sixforn sat alone in his private chamber. On his desk sat a small device, a simple communication unit that had arrived that morning via a non-Council trade ship. When he activated it, a message appeared in the air before him. It contained only a set of coordinates and a short note. When you're ready to talk as equals, we'll be waiting. Sixforn stared at the message for a long time. Then, with a decision made, he called his aide.